Hey guys, today we'll be looking at the former Carson Pirie Scott and Company store at the Southlake Mall in Maryville, Indiana. Now, the Southlake store was opened by Carson Pirie Scott in the 1970s and was one of the first three Indiana locations, the other two being at the Woodmar Mall in Hammond, Indiana, which opened in 1954, and the other being at the Marquette Mall in Michigan City, Indiana, that opened in the 1960s. This store was one of four anchors when at Southlake Mall, being J.C. Penney, Sears, L.S. Air and Company, and Carson Pirie Scott, of course. Now, not much has changed at the anchor lineup of this store. However, the LS Airs, of course, after the 2006 Macyization of the nation, became an R.H. Macy and Company store. Now, when looking around the store, you can see that it is liquidating, and this was in August when all of the Bonton Store Incorporated stores were closing. Bonton was a regional department store chain that operated stores under 7 different banners, including Bonton, Bergner's, Boston Store, Carson Pirie Scott, Elder Beerman, Her Burgers, and Yonkers. These stores mainly were in the Midwest and the eastern United States of America. Now, the stores came together under these 7 different names due to a multitude of mergers, which I plan on going into in the future. But as you can see, the store is still pretty well stocked for being this far into a store closing sale. Of course, I say this as we're coming around the corner seeing a store fixtures area that is completely empty. And we just left the home section and entered into the store for men. And you can see that different fixtures that used to be around the store are now up for sale, including this really cool wood grained one that I really liked. Now, looking around, you could see that all of these would be put up for sale because the stores were being liquidated. Bonton went into bankruptcy due to not being able to pay off the debt of the acquisition of Saks Fifth Avenue's Northern Department Store unit, which included Carson's. And you can see when you turn back into the store for men, if you take down the signs and clean things up a little bit, the store still looked like it could have been open. And this is because the Carson's employees still were trying to do their best to make it a pleasant shopping environment. And the store, which was opened in the 1970s, did receive a remodel in the 1990s, which is really why you see some unique features to the store that aren't in other Carson stores. And you can see one of the outside exits there. And Carson's really invested into this store because they did say that Chicago and northern Indiana were two of their most profitable areas, as the entire Bonton stores. Carson's was actually the most profitable name of the 7. So when looking around, you see the large amounts of signs that were put up by the liquidators, but not a lot of shoppers. Taking a peek back here, just looking at the escalator and a little sneak peek into the back room, where you can see there's still a lot of stock left in this back room. And really, this is because when liquidating the company, they have to get rid of all of the assets, including those that are stuck within the warehouse, which explains why the store is so well stocked, because they have to get rid of everything. And once again, you can see some shoppers going about, but not a lot of people were really enticed by these 50 to 70% off deals. Carson's, when it was announced that it was liquidating, was very sad for many people in Chicago due to the fact that it was one of the last Chicago department stores left. Marshall Field's became Macy's in 2006, and Carson's was that last semblance of Chicago retail. And here we're heading from the store for men into the children's store, and you can see that this area has slightly more business as we'll look around. But one cool area that was off the children's store area was the restrooms and old gift wrap station, which had the manager's office back there. And you could see that there's that computer there that I kind of glanced by that used to have a sign that said, "Apply for a job at Carson Pirie Scott." And man, did I look all over for that sign, but could not find it. And what we're looking at here used to be the gift wrapping station, which was cut back a few years ago when Bonton decided that it was no longer profitable. You can see a mother looking with her kids, trying to find something within the Carson's Kids section. And one thing I found funny was that over there, they still had some mannequins set up, which shows that they were still trying, which is very nice, but it showed that the workers just needed something to do before the store's ultimate demise. And yes, the store did close at the end of August. However, Carson's is on the verge of a comeback. Direct Buy out of Maryville, Indiana, ironically where the store is located, bought the Carson's and other Bonton stores' intellectual property and brought them back as an online store and reopened the first storefront in the recently rebuilt Evergreen Park location. And the new CEO has said that he wants to reopen the Maryville location and is working for a lease in the store where I am right now. Now, will this be successful? Well, Carson's isn't the same Carson's that it used to be. It's a lot of financing, like credit card approval, because they said that they want to get information from customers. And further, we could see that it's not exactly the same selection and quality that people have come to know from Carson's, especially considering that the stores are less than a quarter of the size. So realistically, if they did reopen the store, it would be on the first level, and none of what you're seeing here would be a part of the Carson Pirie Scott of the future. Now here we go, heading down into the lower level of the store, which was mainly women's and jewelry, and there was one little section of women's on the second floor. And the escalators here at the store were very nice, and one thing I will say is when I came back a few weeks later, you couldn't go up to the second level because the store's air conditioner was broken and the liquidators weren't going to pay to fix it. So they had portable ACs on the bottom floor, but they said it was too hot to go to the upper level. But there were still assets and product on the upper level. So here we are in the women's store, heading towards one of the parking lot entrances, and you could see the sheer amount of mannequins that were up for sale. And this is, of course, typical of most liquidation sales, where everything's up for sale. And in August, you got a kick out of seeing all these Christmas decorations up for sale, because everything that was used in these stores for years was now up for the consumer to buy. And just looking over here, you can see some more little things that were used, including some old suitcases, and these were from the last years of Carson's Christmas decorations. I was really enticed to pick some of this stuff up just for sentimental sake. And you can see that it looks like an authentic old briefcase. And I don't know if this was made for Carson's or if they picked it up somewhere to make it into a prop for the store. And yes, you could get your Michael Kors Christmas decorations here. I'm sure that they're going to love me saying that, but Carson's was trying to use all the available sales space to liquidate everything that they had in that store, trying to get every dollar out of it to pay off the debt. And here you can see the other area of the elevator, and to the left used to be the phone to pay off your credit card bills, which was taped off. And here you could see the vases that used to be around the store that just were decor, along with some pictures. Nothing here was really that high quality. It all felt very generic, and nothing really stood out to me. But I'm sure some people got some nice cheap decorations for their homes. So here we're looking at the women's section on the lower level, where, once again, it is very devoid of shoppers, which is not something you want to see for a liquidation sale. And heading over here, we're heading into the shoes department, which was probably one of the most modern inside of the Carsons, and definitely felt to be updated after the 90s remodel. They had a nice clearance section for a long time, and you could see where they were still very well stocked, but were trying to empty out as much as possible. Carson's was trying to make a comeback at this time. The new CEO of the Bonton was from the area of Chicagoland and wanted to see the Carson's brand make a big comeback. However, she was simply too late. And now we're heading into makeup, and this was the one section that really felt thinned out, because it was really good deals on fragrances and makeup and perfume, which usually never go on sale for that much. So a lot of these little cases were emptied out, like you could see here, because it was simply too good of a deal to pass up, and they were trying to consolidate their merchandise into different areas. And now all these display cases were up for sale. And also, when I said in the earlier video about Carson's, these being the first three in Indiana, these were the three opened by the Carson Pirie Scott & Company when it was its own entity. The rest of the stores have been opened by the Bonton and were basically conversions of their other weaker brands like Yonkers and Elder Beerman into the Carson's name because they felt it was stronger, which expanded the brand's presence in Indiana. And the quality of these stores, it could be debated, weren't as good as those near Chicago, but it showed that the Carson's brand still had value, and many people around Chicago definitely valued that. And you could see just looking around how empty the store was, not of merchandise, but of shoppers. And unfortunately, towards the end of Carson's run, this is what the store would look like. because it was run as a generic department store, and as many people in Chicago loved what Carson's was, it had nothing to compel buyers to go there over someplace like J.C. Penney or Macy's with more diverse options at both of those stores, along with, once again, the debt-ridden nature of the Bon-Ton as a whole. And once again, we're heading towards another parking lot entry where they had all of these signs up here. Ordinary people didn't know that Carson's was closing by this point. And here you can see just the general overview of the women's clothing area, which, once again, is very empty. Carson's was very successful at the Southlake Mall location for many years. Originally, when it opened, they had a restaurant in it and a candy counter and a bunch of different departments that were eventually cut back on, including electronics. Carson's restaurant was near the security gate of the Southlake Mall and had windows that looked out, which you can still see from the exterior of the building to this day. And it's really those simple things that even Marshall Fields had up until 2006 that made the department stores very special. And just when looking around this store, you can see the details of the architecture do make it look kind of unique with the circular pillars. And in this women's area, when the last time I was there a couple weeks later, this was all filled with just men's clothing because the department upstairs was closed off. Still a good selection on purses here. Everything was 50 to 70% off, except for that little sign that said 25%, because the liquidators didn't want to have that high merchandise be too cheap to start off the sale. I mean, the store was kept up very well as time during a Carson's, updated, and it looked very nice and inviting for shoppers. And that's really what I want to document here. Not the fact that it was a store closing sale, but just how the store in general looked, because this is something that in future generations will not know about of the traditional American department store. Heading back into the center court of the mall, you can see the partially lit Carson Pirie Scott sign. Now here we are next to the Dick's Sporting Goods, which was built later in the mall's life, that had an entrance that blocked off one of the parking lot entrances of Carson's. So they made it a way for you to walk from the Dick's wing into Carson's where the parking lot used to be. And you can see that this really wasn't high trafficked, but there's something I wanted to point out here. All of the other inside locations were the post-Bergner's merger font for the signs. Now, but if we look at the outside of this store, along with the outsides of Michigan City, Woodmar, and the inside of Orland Park, you can see that this is the old splashy font, as it was dubbed. And they just simply added the red Bergner's flower as opposed to changing the sign. And frankly, I think that this sign has a lot more class than the Bon-Ton and Bergner's logos do, just because of how the font is written, and it seems so much different than what the competitors were doing. And you can see that it was fairly overgrown by trees at this point, and you can see the merchandise pickup area, which wasn't used for merchandise pickup anymore. So heading back in over here, you can see one of the entrances to the upper level of the store. And you can see me trying to head in there. And that's going to wrap it up for this video tour of the Carson Pirie Scott store in Maryville, Indiana. I would plan on going further in depth on the downfall of the Bon-Ton stores in Carson's, and follow me on Instagram and Twitter, like and subscribe.